TV, where we inspire Uganda. But every morning we ensure we serve you a heavy breakfast full of information that you need to know as you go about business during the day. So that is the reason why every weekday you should start your morning with us here on Good Morning Uganda. It is Good Morning Uganda Extra, and once again, I'm Robert Chirabo Nyonyitono. Hope you're enjoying the holiday season and of course preparing to usher into the new year, the long-awaited for 2022, when we are told that our economy will fully reopen. Of course, not forgetting that His Excellency will be addressing the nation. He's expected to address the nation, that is tomorrow on the 31st, and will give us the green light on what we have muchly anticipated, the reopening. Well, away from that, today we are going to be also discussing another issue of national concern, and that is the 2020 National Population Policy and emerging gender issues. You must recall that on November, that is the 11th of November, it was a Thursday, this policy was launched, with the main emphasis highlighting that is priorities for improving the quality of life and standard of living of people in Uganda. Now, joining me on set is a team of people who are well conversant with this 2020 National Population Policy, and of course there are the emerging issues regarding that. With me on set, I'm honored to have, and I think I would use the word welcome home. Welcome home, one of people I've known for some time in the media, and of course doing great work now, who said that, okay, I think I should also venture into something else, and that is Mr. Charles Musana. Charles, it is always a pleasure having you, and of course eager to hear more regarding that is the 2020 National Population Policy.
Good morning, and thank you for having me.
And on the other extreme side, I also have, I have two distinguished ladies with whom we are going to be discussing more regarding this policy, and that is Miss Angela Nakafero, who happens to be the Commissioner, that is Gender and Women Affairs at the Ministry of Gender, Labour and Social Development. Ms. Nakafero, you're most welcome to us today.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everybody, and thank you for watching.
I love it when I know you are going to discuss issues that have a connection with gender. Many a times for us men, gender, always here, women. But now that we have you in relation to this policy, I'm eager to hear more from you.
I'm also excited to be hosted by you, sir.
And I have, that is Miss Samali Wakoli, who happens to be the Assistant, that is Director of Public Prosecution and Head of the Gender, Children and Sexual Offences Department, Office of the Directorate of Public Prosecution. Very eager to hear from her, more so when you are at a time where there's something that usually confuses me. That is, talk about children, COVID, pregnancies. And I always asked, now how does this virus impregnate these young girls? But happy that we have you here. And of course we'll be discussing more in relation to that. Beginning with you, Charles. When we talk about the 2020 National Population Policy and emerging issues, kindly give us more information on what we are going to be discussing. What is this policy briefly about?
Thank you, Robert. The 2020 National Population Policy is the third National Population Policy that we have as a country. It replaces the 2008 National Population Policy, and the first policy came out in 1995. The biggest difference between the 2020 National Population Policy and the other policies is that we now have a population influencing policy. The others were population responsive policies. This policy seeks to attain a quality, cohesive, productive and innovative population for social transformation and sustainable development. The policy has 5 objectives. The first objective is to accelerate a fertility and mortality decline in order to create a population age structure that is conducive for development, but also lower the dependency burden. The second objective is to maximize human capital development gains from both public and private investments. And then 3, we seek to transform Uganda's youthful population into a competitive advantage for development. We also want to strengthen the collaborations between population development and the environment. And lastly, the last objective is to leverage internal and international migration to get the best benefits out of both the internal and external migration. So basically, that's the policy that we have today. And the main direction that we're looking at is to slow the rate at which the population of our country is growing. It has to be in tandem with the rate at which the economy is growing if we are to achieve our development goals. Thank you.
I love the word slow the rate at which our population is growing. It has to be in tandem with actually the development. One man once said, a good population is good. A big population is good, but it must be quality population. And I think this is one of the things that the policy is looking at. Ms. Nakafelo, yes, let's also look at what are some of the gains of this policy, because you want to break it down to a person watching us and understand more that this is what it seeks, but this is what we are to benefit.
Thank you very much. As Charles has really emphasized, we've really made a lot of significant gains regarding improving the quality of the population of Uganda. When I talk about improving the quality of education, the quality of the population in Uganda, we are talking about improving life expectancy. Before 45 years, we now celebrate life expectancy of 62 years, which is a gain on our side. We are now living longer. And of course, that says that we are doing better in terms of health outcomes. We've reduced maternal mortality rate from over 400 to 283. Of course, the rate is still high, but bearing where we are coming from, maternal mortality rate has reduced. The number of women dying really while giving birth has significantly reduced. We are also witnessing increase in survival of our children. Our children are able to survive the first 5 years, and that is a gain. No wonder our population is growing, and that is coming in mainly because of the immunizations that we've gone through, improvement in terms of nutrition, in terms of parental care, and other factors. We also witness improvement in access to education. Education plays a very important part in our lives. It improves our level of knowledge, but also improves our day-to-day lives in terms of accessing other development opportunities. So we now witness an increased number of both boys and girls going to school. We don't take that for granted. We are also witnessing improvement in employment. Of course, we still have challenges of unemployment, but employment has improved. We are now seeing 47% of women having access to gainful paid employment, and 57.3% of men who are employed and are earning. So when you earn, you access better development opportunities. You can take your child to school, you can access health, you can access improvement in income levels, you can enjoy life. That really summarizes why we are able to live longer compared to 10 years back. Of course, the gains in terms of reducing HIV/AIDS is also vivid. However, we are now seeing the aspect of COVID coming in as a threat. But as a country, we've also tried to control COVID. We've not died in massive numbers as was expected. So it's a point of celebration as a country. There's quite a lot to celebrate. When I also look at in terms of the gender inequalities, yes, we still have a long way to go, but gender development index has improved. We are now at 0.83 in terms of the gender development index. Our target is to achieve equality, which is 1, equality between men and women, boys and girls. But even at 0.8.3, for us, we see gains. And this is coming in because of education, because of women improvement in terms of leadership, because of the gains in income and access to employment, and so many other factors.
Charles, she brought in an element of gender very vividly, but I want us to understand, why is gender mainstreaming here very important as far as attaining the objectives of this policy?
Thank you, Robert. You know, I want us to look at this in about 3 perspectives. The first one, when you look at the population of our country, we have about 51% women, which is a huge percentage. So if you want to develop your country, you wouldn't want to leave that huge army behind. You understand? We need to work together to develop the country. But also, most importantly, when we look at fertility, remember in the beginning I said that the main aim of the National Population Policy is to improve the quality of life of Ugandans. And if we are to improve the quality of life of Ugandans, we must slow down the rate at which the population is growing. Now, how do you slow down the rate at which the population is growing? You need to focus on women, because when we look at fertility, we are looking at the number of children per woman. Now, when you empower women, you enable them to make important decisions concerning how many children they want to have. And that is very, very important. And then we also need to empower women to fight vices like teenage pregnancy, because that is one of the biggest drivers of the high population growth rate that we have today. But also, Robert, research has shown that empowered women tend to take very good care of their families. We know that the world of mothers take very good care of their families, but if they are empowered, they have better means of taking care of their families, and when they take care of their families, they are going to raise healthy children, and they will ensure that these children are educated and skilled. So it's really very important to mainstream gender. Thank you.
Very interesting. One person once said, one analyst, that when you educate a girl child, you educate a nation. So really that plays into actually what you're saying. And when we empower the women, and of course there's a trickle-down effect. Many children from teenage mothers, child mothers, their future is also a bit a challenge. Well, those from empowered women, like the ones I have on set, definitely there are green lights ahead of them. But away from that, let me come to Samali. Samali, we know one of the biggest challenges has been gender-based violence. And looking at your docket, we want to have a snapshot into this and how best this policy could be a solution to this in one way or the other.
Thank you so much. I wanted for us to look at it with a clear perspective, starting from the statistics that we have. UBOS recently did research, and you'll be surprised to learn that sexual violence has increased by 55%. Then the police report that we have showed that there was an increase of cases of murder by 16.1% as a result of GBV. And when we talk about economic violence, this is where partners are forced to hand over their earnings, or earnings being given away or grabbed from them. We are at 47%.
Oh, that is a bit higher.
And most
You've made your money, bring them down.
bring under it. When we talk about office or work-related violence, we are now at 86%.
Alarming
When
statistics.
we talk about sexual harassment, we are talking about work-related abuse. And when we talk about violence against children, sexual violence of defilements and other related cases, we are now at 59%. So that means that the problem is a little bigger than we could just imagine. We are looking at our children who are having who are engaged in sexual violence at an early stage. Interestingly, many of these offenses occur in homes and in families, where we have the largest percentage of perpetrators being family members, the father, the uncle, the brother, and these are the perpetrators we have. So even when I talk about economic violence, the perpetrators are the family members, the husband or the uncle or the relatives. You know, it is in a family that these offenses are taking place. So we have the challenge of the nature of the offenses being committed in a family setting, the nature of the perpetrators being family members, and as Africans, we love our families. So you find that the reporting level of the violence against these women and girls is very low. So we are now having a community where many of our young girls who are supposed to be at school are now mothers. So we have babies giving birth to babies. Child mothers. So who takes care of the other when a child is having a child? A child should be in school, but now we have very many of them who are in communities and taking care of their own children. So we believe that with this policy that is population focused, we will now focus on those people who are in the communities and come up with solutions on how to deal with this vice, and also where we can live in a community where our children are safe, our mothers are safe, and also our fathers are safe. He talked about the issue of population and then the way we would control population. I would also think that it is also important that we focus on also men and their role in this whole subject, because you'll find one woman has 3 children, but the one husband has over 10 children in more than 5 women. So I would think that apart from focusing on only how many children a particular woman should have, it's important that we also focus on how many children should a man have. Because if you restrict a woman to have 3 children and this man is capable of producing 3 in 10 women, how many children will those be?
That's a big number. But Samuel, very interesting here, before even I continue, I think you've opened a can of worms. Here we have an element of culture. We have an element of religion. You're coming from that director of public prosecution, where for you, you center on the law. Now, how do you create this balance? Because when people are making their wedding vows, all I have
belongs to you.
I share with you.
So, if you've made money,
yes,
all I have, I give to you.
Yes.
All I do, you know, there's that element for the spiritual aspect of it. Even culture, we have cultures here where if a woman cultivates the garden, it is just normal and culture accepted that you give the returns to your husband to go drink, to go and enjoy. So how are we creating this? Yes, the law is there, but you have religion, you have culture, and this policy seeks to ensure that it brings out improved lifestyle, livelihood of people. We lift the women to that level where we know that you can have a quality population, but we have these that I think we sometimes either fear to talk about them. Religion, don't go that side. Culture, please don't bother.
I think I disagree with your interpretation of the vows and the culture. We have a very rich culture and the culture is sharing. If I say what I have, I share with you. Sharing is a give and take. So when I share with you, you also share with me. Here we are looking at a scenario where one is not sharing theirs, but they just want to be on the receiving end. Give me. And even when you say give me, you see, if you're sharing, I'll say, can I have a cup of tea? And then you'll give me a cup of tea and we'll share with you. But when you say, give me that cup, you are demanding. And that is not sharing. That is not what the Bible talks about. So the religion is there to foster good relationships. We have also cultures that are there to also foster good relationships. But you also need to remember that we have a constitution, which is the highest law that we have in the country, and any customs or religious practices or cultural practices that are repugnant to the way the Constitution requires, then such cultures are not acceptable. Be it as it may, you also know also very well that it is our same Constitution that provides for equality, and it is the same Constitution that is providing for women empowerment. So in light of that, we don't have any contradiction in the law. Actually, the practices in the culture fit in our Constitution, and our Constitution fit in the policy. Yes.
Well, Musana, we know, you wanted to supplement. Please feel free.
Summary's response fits in well with the existing statistics, where we are seeing 47% of women are economically exploited. Women are being forced to give under duress. Somebody forces you to give him, not because it's my choice, but I'm deprived of my choice to give because I'm scared of the violence that is going to result out of my choice of saying no to your demands. Some of them, they produce, and the man, the husband, grabs everything at the expense of the well-being of the family. So we cannot look at that as giving per se, but it's a form of violence that is forcing women to say, okay, let him take, because I need my peace of mind. Yes, but you find that families are deprived of their well-being, they're deprived of food, they're deprived of nutrition, they're deprived of economic income. And of course, when we talk about development and quality of life, we are not going to move in a positive direction if we continue with the current economic exploitation by men.
Charles, we know that policy seeks to reduce population so that we have a manageable population beginning with family level. But let's look at women empowerment here in terms of issues of a manageable population. Yes, we know most of the times, I'll stick to some elements, that is tradition and culture as well. Very few women, I want to believe, have or are empowered to know their rights and can determine the number of children. Very few, I want to believe. How is this policy going to ensure that we have this? Many men have said, if you can't give me the number of kids I want, either leave or allow me to go and have these children outside there. Yet now here the main emphasis is being put on these ladies. Give us the connection here and how best we can fit into this objective.
Thank you, Robert. I want to begin by informing the country that we actually don't seek to reduce the population, and it's scientifically almost impossible to reduce the population of a country unless you're going to kill people. What the policy seeks to attain is to slow down the rate at which the population is growing. Population growth is a good thing, but then, as I said at the beginning, we need a rate of growth that is sustainable. And then on top of that, the policy does not restrict. We are not saying that each woman should have 1 or 2 children, and there is always a misconception. We've also heard about people who think that Uganda does not have a population policy because we are not restricting, we are not dictating numbers. It's a fundamental human right for couples to determine how many children they want to have. So what we do is to give these people information to enable them make informed decisions. Now, you asked a very good question of how we are going to achieve this. As National Population Council, we work with our partners, both in government, the civil society, and development partners, to engage different kinds of people. We are engaging policymakers, but we also know that implementation of government programs takes place at the local government level. So we engage local governments. We also have advocacy campaigns and sensitization campaigns that target the grassroots people. Now, when we engage these people, the main emphasis of our engagement is ensuring that they integrate population and development factors into their plans and budgets. And they are mainly talking about local governments, but also MDAs, because they have annual plans and budgets, they have development plans, but we also engage other partners like National Planning Authority to ensure that issues that are in the policy are integrated in the national development plans. And right now we are talking about the 3rd National Development Plan. Yes.
Well, this also brings me to Ms. Nakafero. We're talking about the 2020 National Population Policy, but let's also understand if there's reasonable steps or strides that were made since we had the first in 1995. So are there something that we can be proud of, that at this level we've achieved this, therefore with now the more people-centered, we are going to be able to kick into where we are heading to, where we are planning to see that we better improve the livelihood and quality of people. What are some of those strides, if any, that we can be proud of?
Thank you very much. I look at the strides from different perspectives. First of all, the enabling legal and policy framework is very, very important because it informs our programming. Charles has already talked about ministries, departments, and agencies ensuring that we prioritize issues related to improving the quality of Ugandans. You'll find that from different ministries, departments, and agencies, all of us are trying to implement programs that are focusing on improving the quality of lives. For instance, if I reflect on the work of the Ministry of Gender, Labour, Social Development, we are pushing for women economic empowerment. It has a lot to do with the quality of life of women in Uganda. If you have an income, you can make choices, okay? We are also focusing on
when you talk
vulnerable.
About that, you've just reminded me, recently I was talking to a group of men, and you know there has always been this phobia or fear for empowered women among some communities. So they were telling me, my friend, these days when you look at statistics, women seem to be, women empowerment is to some people, it could be a threat to some communities.
Well, it depends on how you're looking at it, but from my personal observation,
also economic empowerment.
Women's economic empowerment is very, very important because it benefits everybody, beyond the woman who is earning. I'm able to take my children to school. That contributes to national development. I'm able to put food on the table. I'm able to secure where we are living. All those are very important gains that we need to look at from a broader perspective regarding the quality of population in Uganda. Not only women, but beyond ourselves. You'll also find that Ministry of Gender, we are focusing on improving the lives of the vulnerable categories of people. The youth, the children, people with disabilities, older persons, they are special programs. These monthly allowances to the older persons is really going a a long way to improve their lives. If you went to Ministry of Education, the skilling component is very, very particular, very, very important in terms of improving our lives. Talk about Ministry of Health. They're really controlling a lot of our decisions in terms of controlling the fertility rate, okay? We've been able to move from 5.4 in 2016 in terms of total fertility to currently 3.
What are the driving factors for this reduction?
The driving, no, I think I've made a mistake. It's not currently 3. That is the national population rate.
Oh.
But total fertility is now standing at 5.4. So reducing the number of children each woman can have in Uganda has a lot of impact on what we stand to benefit as a country. Okay? Some of the factors that are helping us is in terms of the contraceptives, which are giving us choice, that I can space my children instead of having a child every after 2 years. I can reduce the number of children I'm going to have. Secondly, because of the increasing number of girls in schools, we are able to delay the age at which women are starting to bear children. If I started at 27, I'm not going to have the same number of children with somebody who started at age 14, okay? It's really a challenge that in the COVID context, we are seeing our adolescent girls becoming pregnant. It's a threat to the gains we've made, and I believe that all of us as government of Uganda, we are going to work together to ensure that our adolescent girls who are currently pregnant or mothers are given a second chance to enjoy their human rights as Ugandans. That, of course, calls for second chance education, special programs in terms of spacing the children, family planning, economic empowerment. Really, we need to come together to give them choices to ensure that they have a second chance to contribute to national development.
I love the word second chance, because I've been able to find a number of women who have been given a second chance. They delivered while they were in school. They were not abandoned. They were not stigmatized. They were not intimidated. They were told, yes, it could be a fall in a deep ditch, but you can still stand up and rise. I think this is the message we should all take. It's no condemnation against these children, because they are young and circumstances have led them to that. But if you can encourage them that you can still be what you wanted to be despite this having happened as a shortfall. Well,
however, Robert, we condemn the perpetrators.
Yeah.
Fathers, brothers, our relatives, it's wrong to engage our girls in sexual-related activities when they're still young. And of course, my colleague Samali will tell you the implications, the repercussions of what will bring.
Samali, let's also, you know, you hold a very important docket here at the Directorate of Public Prosecution. You're in charge of these children. And of course, issues regarding to gender-based violence. But this is a song we've sung. Unfortunately, I'm so much interested in criminality and reporting these cases, so I have passion in that field. But for the last 5 consecutive years, one of the crime that keeps on increasing is this. And I wonder, I think there's more civility in Uganda, I want to believe. We have more educated people, so you would think this could be reducing. But yeah, after every crime report, police crime, annual crime report, an increase, and shooting in big percentages. I think this time it was about 29%, yet other crimes were in about 10, 5, it's even superseding murder and all these other forms. What can be done to end this?
One of the solutions is this policy, because it goes to the people, all right? So the other issue is for us to work together as a team. You and I and everybody else must be involved in working towards ending violence against children. This is because our communities have tended to accept sexual violence as though it is a normal thing. And yet it is a criminal offense which is highly punishable in our laws in Uganda. For example, if you defile or you engage in a sexual act with a child who is below the age of 18, who is below the age of 14, the punishment is death, the maximum. Then also, if you get a child who is above the age of 14 but below the age of 18, the punishment is life imprisonment. The challenge we have is that many of our children don't want, or the cases are not reported. For example, if the perpetrator is the father, the mother will say, for the sake of protecting the family, I will not report the case at police. But remember, we have a child that is coming on the way who does not know whether to call the father, the grandfather, or the actual daddy. Then also, in cases where the perpetrator is an uncle, many times the family will want to sit and settle the case amicably instead of reporting. However, in settling these cases amicably, concern is never made on the children who are being born as a result of this defilement. Not to say that every defilement ends in the child being produced, but it is already wrong to engage a child in a sexual activity. Then we have, that is the general acceptance. And the community thinks that the best way to have these cases resolved is by sitting and negotiating about the case. But you see, when you negotiate a case today and the person has not felt the pinch of the law, it means that tomorrow they will again go to another person's child. And then they will go to another person's child. And before you know it, the case comes to police, and then they tell you, on the village we live in, this man has defiled so far 4 children. 1 man, 4 children. And you ask them, why didn't you come at first? Well, they have several reasons why the cases are not reported. Then also, as a country, we don't have a witness protection law. So many of the people fear reparation or fear punishments that will come from the perpetrators. You go to police to report, and the person will say, okay, when you report, we will see where you'll come back to. You're going back to the home where the perpetrator is living with you. Where can this child go? Where can this mother go in case they have decided to report the case? So there is no specific protection that is offered to them, and because there is no protection, they would rather stay back instead of reporting the case and face more punishment from the perpetrators. We have seen cases where at the first report, if we are to talk about physical violence, the woman will report today it is assault. The next day they go back, they are beaten more. Why did you go to police? Then it becomes a grievous harm. Then the next time we have is a murder. And now when the murder occurs, that's when the whole community comes up in arms, and you hear them every day. When
they give you the stories of what has been happening.
They are like, this has been going on every day. Actually, we have warned him not to beat the wife, but he doesn't want to listen. And that is the community we are in. So we would want the message to go down to the communities we are living in and set parameters, what is acceptable and what is not acceptable. If somebody has done ABCD, let it be known that is a criminal offense, report it to police, let the matter be investigated. For us, our mandate is to prosecute, and we will ensure that all the wrong people in the communities are kept away, and then we have a community that is peaceful. You see, when you live in a community where you're not sure of tomorrow, life becomes very difficult. So it's important that we have a place where you know that I can go to police, I can report, and I will go back and have a peaceful night because the perpetrator is not there. But now
very interesting, Uganda. We hope we can get to that level where precedences are set that are positive and not negative.
Yes.
Not a man raping 1, 2, 3, 4 and loitering around the village, and that is a precedent which doesn't deter anybody.
Yes.
But a man attempting to and faces the wrath of the law, that is a prison that will scare many from committing that. And we believe with this policy. Charles, now this brings me to a question. Yes. You see, the National Population Council was established to coordinate the implementation of this policy. How are you planning to ensure effective implementation of this policy?
You are right, Robert. It's the mandate of National Population Council to coordinate the implementation, not that the policy belongs to National Population Council. This is a policy for Uganda. Now, how are we going to ensure its effective implementation? Of course, number one, it starts with dissemination, and we are happy that you are hosting us today to discuss this, but also to advocate for the integration of population factors in different frameworks. And before I talk about these frameworks, the policy is coming at a time when implementation of government programs is improving, and we are moving into the program-based budgeting and planning, which will make it much easier for us to implement this policy. But then there are some frameworks that we plan to use. One, we have the National Standard Indicator Framework. We must ensure that issues in the policy are integrated in there. And then ministries, departments, and agencies prepare ministerial policy statements. We should ensure that these issues are in there. And then we also do what we call budget framework papers. It's important to have population factors integrated in there, but also National Planning Authority issues a certificate of compliancy, and indicators have been integrated in that process, that if population and development issues are not part of your plans and budgets, then National Planning Authority cannot issue the certificate of compliance. But the most important thing is to ensure that Ugandans do understand the policy, they do appreciate the importance of this policy. In a snapshot, we are looking at development that is to come as a result of accelerating a fertility decline, but also ensuring that we make strategic investments in health, because if the population is to be productive, it has to be healthy. We should ensure that our people are educated, but not only being educated, but also skilled, because today, as we talk, the job market is requiring more of the vocational and technical skills than even the other skills that we've been putting emphasis on. And then it's also very important to ensure that the economy creates enough jobs for the youthful population. But also, if we concentrate on vocational and technical skilling, then some of these young people are going to create their own jobs. And lastly, good governance, ensuring that there is efficiency and effectiveness in the use of public resources. So those are some of the strategies that we are going to use, and we are already doing this. We have a number of very good partners, just like Ministry of Gender, the DPP, Ministry of Health, Ministry of Education, UBOS, NPA. The list is endless, and the local governments that we closely work with. Thank you.
Well, the list is endless, and of course, you know, this is a policy that will be a solution to many issues. But here, let me get it from you, Angela. What have been some of the challenges? Because I know it's not all rosy.
Yeah.
You know, Musana makes it sound so very, we are. Seems like if you're playing chess, every pawn that is piece where it's supposed to be. What are some of the outstanding challenges?
Of course, as we celebrate the gains, we also note the challenges, and some of them have already been highlighted. The first challenge is patriarchy, where we are putting boys and men as superiors to women. And quite often, women and girls make choices, not in our own favor, but in favor of men and boys in our lives. That already undermines the rate at which we can promote women's empowerment and gender equality. You will also find that our choices are also deeply rooted in our social norms, practices, okay? You'll find that families will marry off a young girl, deny her the right to education, mainly because they think that this girl, if she's left unmarried, she's going to be spoiled, which is not always the case, okay? So we make so many choices that are negative in terms of women's empowerment and development, because we are basing our choices, our decisions on our social norms, practices. You'll find that our sisters and brothers in Karamoja are still celebrating female genital mutilation, but it destroys the woman's reproductive health. So the challenge of patriarchy intertwined within our negative social norms is a very big challenge. And you'll bear with me that it takes ages to shift people's mindset. However, we are trying our level best, working with our cultural and traditional leaders, because these are the gatekeepers of our social norms. We are also working with religious leaders. They do a lot in terms of shaping our values. Another challenge, ladies and gentlemen, is in terms of the resources. Yes, we have some resources, but they are not adequate for gender equality and women's empowerment delivery in Uganda. We've tried to mainstream gender in all the NDP3. It was a deliberate effort. We've also mainstreamed gender and equality issues in our program implementation action plan. That is why Charles can say that is not working alone, it's all government working together with the different stakeholders. But we can still do more in terms of resource allocation. Another challenge is in terms of really negative masculinity. Your attitude where people think that women's empowerment is not good for men, that is part of our negative masculinity.
Are you pushing for equality or equity?
Both. We want equality, we want equity.
Okay.
Okay? And of course, we need the support of men and boys in our lives. When I'm empowered, we all stand to benefit. When he's empowered, we all stand to benefit. So in that kind of perspective, it means that we need to work together as a team. Husband and wife, sisters and brothers, so that we really take the right direction towards sustainable human development in Uganda.
Well, I want to thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for giving us an insight into, that is the 2020 National Population Policy and the emerging gender issues in this country. In the interest of time, I want each of you to take a minute and have your final shot regarding this policy. I'll begin with you, Charles.
Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, mine is simple. You know, it's always your choice, and it will be your choice as a couple to determine how many children to have. But then you need to have a number of children that you can take very good care of at family level. Children that you can ensure are healthy and educated. And then at community level, when we have very many children, we also put a lot of pressure on service delivery. And then lastly, I encourage you to take your children to school. Our country will never develop unless we ensure that our youthful population is both educated and skilled. And of course, we should fight teenage pregnancy, because it's the biggest driver of the high fertility that we have in this country. Thank you.
Well, Angela, your final shot.
Thank you very much. I would like to make an appeal that as we move into 2022, we need to check on our negative social norms and practices and really adopt those that support gender equality and women's empowerment. And of course, all of us have a role to play, given the support of government. Thank you.
Well, summary, let's have your final remarks, more so from that office where some of us believe if there is the law, why not the law?
Well, the law is practiced with the people in Uganda, and it is my appeal to everyone and that in a community, everybody needs protection. Look after the children well. and ensure that the children are safe. A safe environment is what everybody looks out for. And please, don't abuse children, because they are the future of tomorrow. And these children are our children. So if you abuse your own child, what you sow will always come back. Today you may not be a parent, but tomorrow you're going to be a parent. How will you feel if your child is also abused? So let us look after one another. Let us live in a peaceful environment, and then you'll not face the bad side of the law. We need to look after each other. And I wish you all a prosperous 2022.
Well said. All I can say is let's have children by choice and not by chance. There we can have a manageable population, because both two that are going to have these kids will have agreed on why they should and how they plan to manage. We need a big population, but it must be quality population. It's not all about having children. Children, what kind of people are you bringing on planet Earth? Together we believe if this policy is well implemented, then we are heading for a better Uganda. I want to thank you so much. That is Miss Angela Nakafero, Commissioner for Gender and Women Affairs. That's Ministry of Gender, Labour and Social Development. Thank you so much for your time.
2022 to all Ugandans.
And Miss Samali Wakoli, who happens to be the Assistant Director, Public Prosecution and Head of the Gender, Children and Social Offences Department. Thank you so much for finding time.
Thank you too. For
and of course, Comrade Charles Musana, who happens to be the Principal National Program Officer, National Population Council, for having found time.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, and we hope, of course, for more deliberations regarding this policy. All we can say, stay safe, protect yourself, and do not engage in anything that may hinder you from entering the year 2020. God bless you. See you tomorrow, same time. Have a lovely day.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala, this is Good Morning Uganda Extra. It's the festive season and we love it. And that means it's time to celebrate with GoTV.
Come with me.
So get your GoCoder and GoTV